Welcome back to Legacy Her Way, the podcast where we explore how women define and build legacy on their own terms. I'm your host, Tanya Hendricks, and today's episode is close to my heart. We're talking about living with intention, what it means to live on mission, on purpose. This episode is inspired by my interviews with Dana Stone and Melissa Chavez, who you've already heard, but also the other powerful women that I've interviewed for this podcast. Together, we're going to dig into living intentionally, how to reshape your life, your career, and your legacy. First, though, as I'm recording this, we're almost a week out from the devastating floods in Texas, and I just have to offer my heartfelt condolences to the families of those who lost loved ones in those horrific floods. I can't even imagine. Probably like many of you, I watched the coverage and was just heartbroken, sick over the loss of life, the devastation caused by that. And so, like you, many of you, I've prayed for the families. I prayed for the friends, those who watched and heard the devastation happening, the cries and the calls for help. And I've been praying for those who are actually searching for the missing people because they have a very tough job. And so I want to spend just a minute or two offering my condolences to those families. All right, so where do we find the courage to start living with intention? Melissa's story that you heard in episode 4 is a testimony to what happens when a woman dares to act with intention. After years in corporate marketing, you heard Melissa talk about how she felt a stirring in her soul. She missed connecting with people, understanding their stories, and helping them grow. She didn't just quit one day and leap blindly into entrepreneurship. No, she educated herself. She built a strong foundation. She took time. It wasn't overnight. You heard her talk about it took a long period of time for her to get educated, build a strong foundation, and then make that calculated, faith-filled decision. Her pivot, though, did not start with ambition. It started with awareness. The awareness that she wasn't where she was supposed to be. And that's the first key of intentional living. It begins with awareness. So ask yourself, where am I now? Is this where I'm meant to be? Am I living for comfort or am I living for calling? And when I talk about calling, it's not just that religious, missional, full-time ministry type calling. It's a calling of we talked about instincts. You know where you're supposed to be. And by talking about this, I'm not suggesting that you pick up and leave and do some crazy things, but I am suggesting you take a deep look at your calling. What do you feel led to do? So for me, in 2013, I shut down my law practice in Foley. So I had a law practice in Foley, Alabama until 2013. And that was my source of income. It was my identity. But I shut it down in 2013 to go work for a safe house for sex trafficking victims. So I felt the calling to work with sex trafficking victims. That decision was terrifying. I had no roadmap, just a calling. And so to explain kind of how that came about, I had been working with sex trafficking victims. I'd been working with agencies since 2009 to help look for sex trafficking victims. In 2012 or 2011, 2012, I met the founder of the Well House, a safe house for sex trafficking victims in Birmingham, Alabama. They had just opened. I just happened to see an article about them in the paper. And I had to drive through Birmingham on my way to an event in Atlanta. And I arranged to meet with the founder. And she and I connected. I hit it off. And I just knew, I'd known for a long time that I wanted to work full-time with sex trafficking victims. I really wanted that to be my career, my job, because I just felt so passionate about it. if you listen to the debut episode, you heard me talk about that passion and how that there's just a burning in my soul to help these victims. And so when I met with that director in either 2011, 2012, we just maintained a relationship, open communication. And then in late 2011, she came down to the Foley area where I was living at the time, and we had a conversation. She's like, "I want you to come work for me." And I said, "Well, how much are you going to pay me?" And she's like, "We can't pay you anything. We're a nonprofit that just got started." And you have to keep in mind, this was a time when people were just beginning to talk about trafficking, but not a lot. And so there wasn't a lot of money being thrown at nonprofits at this time, although it started picking up. So anyway, she's like, "We can't pay anything." I said, "Well, I can't leave my job. I can't stop working and to go to work for somebody who can't pay me." And so we left it at that. But that conversation would not leave my mind. I could not shake that conversation for anything. It kept coming back to me, and I would pray about it. Like, "God, they can't pay me. There's no way I'm shutting down my law practice and going to Birmingham when they can't pay me." But I could not shake that conversation and that thought. And so I talked with her a little bit more, and she's like, "No, we can't pay you, but you can live in the house. So you'll have free rent, free food. Everything's going to be there provided for you. We just can't pay you." And I was like, "Well, no, I got to have pay. I still have student loans." And in 2012, I started working on my Master's of Divinity. And so I got, I've got these costs to pay for. And so finally, late 2012, I met with my pastor and I said, "This is what's been on my heart. This is the conversation I had. This is something that I just can't shake." And he said, "Tanya, with that type of, just constant in your mind, there's constant thoughts about it." It's like, and some other things were happening too at that time that I explained to him. He's like, it's got to be a God thing. It's got to be God calling you into that. Because if you can't shake it after you've done everything to shake it, God's calling you to that. So in December 2012, I announced I'd be closing my law practice and going to work for the Well House as quote unquote missionary because, they couldn't pay me. And so my law practice closed down in January 2013. And I moved to Birmingham for a place that couldn't pay me. But I knew it was the right decision because after I made that decision, I had a peace, just an absolute peace. And you heard Melissa talk about that in her episode, that she had a peace about her decision. So it was just an absolute peace that I was making the right decision. And there were things that just confirmed it, like little things about, little things that were happening that just was confirmation that it was the right decision. And so I went with that. Now, during that time frame, though, I coined this little phrase called "on mission, on purpose," because I realized that if I wanted to accomplish this goal, if I wanted to go help these women who were being rescued from sex trafficking, and I had to juggle all the other things going on in my life, and I had to try to raise money and have, a way to live, I had to live on mission, which was to free the captives, which is, a whole Bible verse. One of the things that really prompted me was some of the readings about freeing captives. Anyway, I don't want to go down that trail, but that was my mission. That my mission was to help these women. But I had to live on purpose to do that. I had to live very purposefully, very intentionally in order to help those women and be at my best each and every day for them because they deserved it. They needed it. And so I had to live on mission, on purpose. And that was something that I just kept repeating to myself. And that became a mantra during that period of time. But I remember thinking back in 2013, particularly as I'm closing down my law practice and I'm saying goodbye to everybody. And I'm thinking, oh, what if I fail? What if I fail? What if this thing doesn't work out? And there were certainly people in my life who didn't understand this calling and were very negative about it. Now, they had my best interest at heart. They were very much concerned for me. And so they had my best interest and they tried to discourage me. However, I knew it was God's call on my life. And because I knew it was his call on my life, I knew he would take care of me. Even if it failed, even if I got to Birmingham and nothing worked out and it was a horrible experience, I knew that God would take care of me because I was following his call on my life. I was obeying what he told me to do. That shift from fear to faith is what mission living is about. Living on mission means aligning your life with a bigger purpose. It doesn't have to be Christian or faith-based, but just with a bigger purpose. For Melissa, that meant building a business that serves others with integrity and excellence. For me, it meant stepping out of the courtroom and into safe houses. For you, it may be writing a book, starting a nonprofit, or raising children who will thrive. Maybe changing the way your community sees justice, creativity, or faith. Mission doesn't always look grand. Sometimes it's quiet. But it's always driven by love, courage, and service. So what does purpose mean? Let's talk about the purpose part. Living with purpose is about the how. It's the daily decisions, it's the habits, the sacrifices, the structure. To accomplish a goal, your dream, you must make intentional choices. You have to be intentional with your actions. It will require saying no to some things so you can say yes to your goals. I had to say no to making a lot of money as a lawyer, to say yes to going and living in a safe house for sex trafficking victims without any promise of pay. But another example is back in 2020, when I was writing my first book. I love a glass of wine at night. Oh, it was just awesome. I loved a glass of wine, just unwinding. I was a divorce lawyer at the time, and I was handling all the high conflict type divorces, high conflict, complex stuff. And I needed a glass of wine every night to help me unwind. And so I was drinking a glass of wine every night. But I realized as I was writing my book, I wasn't on my A game. The morning after I drank some wine at night, even just a glass or two, I wasn't on my A game. And I need to be on my A game. I need to be able to think clearly. I didn't need to have a foggy brain. I need to be able to get up in the morning and get to moving, get my writing done, my editing done. And if I was having wine every night, I just wasn't able to function at the high performance I needed to for writing. And particularly since I also had to make myself get up early. So when I started writing my book, I started getting up at 4:00 every morning. And so in order to accomplish that goal, there are sacrifices. And I was sacrificing my wine at night and getting up at 4:00 in the morning. But I was intentional. I was being on purpose. I was living on purpose to accomplish my goal, to accomplish that mission of writing a book and to be a published author. So I created a morning routine. And during this time, I created a morning routine and I built weekly planning around that. So purpose is what fuels your mission through that mundane, through the everyday. That purpose is what fuels your mission to get you to your goal. Melissa actually said it beautifully. She sacrificed resources, relationships, even time off to pour into Mac Global Promotions. And even if you remember, she talked about how, she would maybe have a big sale or big deal happen. And instead of her pocketing that extra money, she put it back into the business. So she was making her own sacrifices. Her business became her husband and her baby. She journaled. She manifested through prayer. She dreamed about planes with her company's logo. Remember I was talking about her having the big jet that's got Mac Global Promotions on it? So she has dreamed about planes with her company's name on them. And then she got to work. So it's not just manifesting. It's not just praying about things. It's not saying, please God, let me have that. You have to go to work. You have to actually work for it. Now, whether you're building a global brand or a peaceful home, purpose shows up in the small things. You just have to set boundaries. You have to say no to distractions. You have to invest in your health, your faith, and your vision. Purpose doesn't mean perfection. It means progress, direction, and clarity. Living on purpose is not necessarily easy. So, who has tried to lose weight and eat healthy? I mean, I know I'm not the only one, that this is a constant struggle. So, it takes a lot of intention to plan meals, schedule workouts, schedule the time it takes to prepare meals and clean up. I mean, my goodness, that takes hours out of your week. And though my mission and purpose is very clear as to living a healthy lifestyle, my mission and purpose, because I need to live a healthy lifestyle so I can be at my best for my clients, be at my best for you guys on this podcast, be at my best for our family, and have a long life with my husband. That mission is very clear, but the mundane, the daily of doing all the things to live that healthy lifestyle is a struggle. Particularly when we have so many demands on our time. We have so many things demanding our time that living on mission, on purpose, is a daily, sometimes hourly decision. And I've always made the right decision. Today, in fact, I had the opportunity, had lunch with some ladies, and I was struggling over the menu. It was like, I want those waffles, and I wanted the chicken waffles. I wanted the pancakes, the Belgian waffles with all the sugar and all that stuff on it. Or do I eat something healthy? Or anyway, it was a struggle to try to choose the right thing. So it is a hourly, sometimes daily decision to make the right decisions and to live on purpose. But legacy isn't what you leave behind when you die. Legacy is what you build now. There are 3 parts to legacy: memory, resources, and identity. What stories will your children tell about you? This is the legacy of your memory. What habits are you passing down? What values will outlive you? What are you doing or building that will last long after you're gone? So Melissa shared that she wants to build something lasting, not just for herself, but for her daughter, for her team, and for the community she loves. She's already living that legacy, not by chance, but by design. We have 8,760 hours in a year. 8,760 hours in a year. How are you using those hours? Can you carve out 6 of those to prepare your will, name guardians for your children, and protect your family's future? I mean, seriously, I'm a estate planning lawyer. Did you think I wasn't going to include that? But also, if you're trying to reach a goal, you have to live with intention using your 8,760 hours in a year. Have to use those hours wisely. So how do you build with intention? What are you going to do in those 8,760 hours to reach your goal? Living intentionally means planning for the inevitable, but also stewarding the unexpected. It means controlling what you can and certain what you can't. If you want to live on mission, on purpose, here are a few habits that will support you. And you heard Melissa talk about these. I've talked about them in my solo episodes. So first, you can journal. Journal daily. Speak your dreams into existence. You can, and I'm not talking about prosperity gospel. No, I'm not. But start writing things down. Sometimes it sounds woo-woo. I get it. But sometimes when you say things out loud, you're putting things out into the universe and it seems to happen. I know it sounds woo-woo. It may sound anti-Christian, but I can attest to that there are times that I have put things out there, said it verbally, just because I wanted to say it verbally, and then it eventually happened. So whatever's behind that. But you can speak, you can journal, you can each day write out. I use my journal a lot of times as a prayer. So I'm like, just writing out the things I'm praying for, or, the frustrations, obviously, that I have, because as a business owner, it can be quite frustrating sometimes. If no one's ever told you how difficult it is to be a business owner and you want to be a business owner, let's have a chat. Because it is a frustrating thing sometimes. It's very rewarding but it can be frustrating. So I journal a lot to get those frustrations out. But you can journal your dreams, journal your hopes, journal your goals. Another habit is to replace a bad habit with a good one. So stop scrolling. You can trade the scrolling through social media for creating. So create something instead of scrolling. Write instead of scroll. Whatever it is you want to do. If you want to paint instead of scroll. You can trade procrastination for girls. I am so bad about procrastination, but you can trade procrastination for progress. Wake up earlier. Give yourself space to think, plan, and act. I was at a conference one time and they kept saying, wake up earlier, wake up earlier. I was like, I'll wake up at 4:00 every day. I can't wake up any earlier. They're like, no, you can't. You're good. They'll try to wake up earlier. But if you can wake up earlier to give you that extra 30 minutes, extra hour in the morning, that will do wonders for you reaching your goal. Another habit is to say no to good things, to say yes to the best things. That could be sales, like, clothing sales, distractions such as scrolling on social media, and people who drain you. If you are trying to go on a great vacation, but you need to save money, don't fall for that deal of the day from Kate Spade. I almost did that recently and I had to stop. You can also opt to make your own coffee at home rather than splurging at the coffee shop down the street. Although there's some great mom and pop shops. I love them, but sometimes you may have to save your money. And also don't splurge on Prime days. I think we're in Prime days right now. Do you need that stuff? What do you need? That Prime deal more than you want that vacation? So think about those things. Sometimes you say no to the good things to say yes to the best things. And also, the final habit is surround yourself with wise voices. As Melissa said, get in a room with people ahead of you. That's 1 or 2 steps ahead of you that you can learn from. Let their faith and experience guide your next step. So you need to seek wise counsel. It's basically what that comes down to. Seek wise counsel. And there are a lot of opportunities you can get into spaces with people who may be 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, whether in your same industry or another one, but somebody you can learn from. So intentional living doesn't mean having it all figured out. It means taking educated risk, staying the course when it's hard, and being open to what God wants to do through your life. Living on mission, on purpose, is not about being Superwoman. It's about being a woman of intention. So what's your mission? What do you feel called to do, even if it scares you? What's one step you can take this week, not someday, this week? As Dana would tell you, your day one, not one day, but day one. What is one step you can take this week to live on purpose? Is it making a phone call, joining a group, blocking off your mornings, writing the first paragraph of your book, scheduling an appointment with an estate planning attorney? Of course, I'm going to put that in there. Whatever it is, start today. Start small, but just start. And remember, your legacy isn't a future thing. It's being built right now, in this moment, through your choices, your values, and your actions. Live it. Own it. Build it her way. Thank you for joining me on Legacy Her Way. If today's episode inspired you, share it with a friend who needs encouragement to live with intention. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review. It helps more women find their way to legacy. Until next time, I'm Tanya Hendricks. Go live on mission. Go live on purpose.